As I end this first year as president of the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, I am pleased that our 140th annual general meeting is both defined and driven by the theme, Building Resilience and Shared Prosperity in Uncertain Times. This theme is reflective of our clearly defined mission to foster sustainable business growth and development of our members through strong leadership, strategic advocacy, and innovative services, while enabling them to positively impact their communities. It is an apt directive for us who must not only manage our individual enterprises, but also navigate the many vexing issues which keep us up at night: law and order, human resource shortages, dysfunctional infrastructure, and to put it charitably, the frustrating inadequacy of public services. Such inadequacies restrain economic and commercial growth. Redressing them should concern us deeply if we are to propel this country forward in balanced and sustainable ways. With the challenge firmly laid, I am confident that the trust given at the 2023 AGM to this dedicated and dynamic executive team was well placed. This board of directors has led us through volatile and unpredictable times, staying the course set in our 2022 to 2025 strategic plan, which remains keenly focused on the core needs of members. In our role as champions of the St. Lucian business community, we have guided and supported our secretariat in pursuit of agreed strategic goals. We have engaged and advocated on your behalf at all levels of government, knowing full well that effective advocacy requires consistent, persistent, meaningful engagement. This is to say that advocacy is a complex task, demanding many long hours, working strategically, sometimes in the spotlight, but more often unseen, persuading stakeholders, gatekeepers, and policymakers that better can and must be done, especially if we are to sustain and share that elusive development dividend. In that context, I must address the issue of crime, violence, and lawlessness, which claim top priority as our advocacy agenda, and which have occasioned direct engagements at multiple levels of government and administration throughout the past 12 months. The Chamber is impatiently aware that crime abatement requires a multifaceted strategy and has long advocated for a cradle-to-grave approach to fight crime more systematically at all levels, at all stages, and with all tools available. The Chamber has and will always support crime-fighting efforts by the police and government. Moreover, while we are not experts in the matter, we are often affected directly or consequentially, and therefore are knowledgeable and resourced enough to identify and support initiatives that ameliorate the problem. It is in that light that we acknowledge and recognize and applaud the government's training of the first batches of recruits in quite a few years from the police training school, and we also applaud the provision of much needed equipment to the police. The Chamber encourages government to continue investing in both personnel and equipment to ensure an appropriately resourced RSLPF. Similarly, we call on government to determinedly invest in the better protection of our borders. As a matter of priority, we should shortly see the procurement and commissioning of appropriate scanning assets for goods and persons at all points of entry in order to stall the influx of illegal firearms and ammunition into this country. Crimes involving illegal firearms are far too common in our society and fuel an unacceptably high murder rate, inconsistent with our objectives as a peaceful nation and our market position as a tourism destination. Other methods of removing illegal guns and ammunition off the streets and in the country should be urgently explored. Still on the matter of our coastal borders, Darren, I haven't forgotten you. The St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority manages our gateway to the world. SLASPA facilitates virtually all official trade in inputs, raw materials, and finished goods. However, much of the authority's aging infrastructure needs to be upgraded, rehabilitated, or replaced. The functional role SLASPA plays as an engine of growth is too critical to be compromised by infrastructure deficiencies. In fact, precisely because of our import dependency, the cost of any such deficiency results in a de facto tax on the entire economy. The Chamber therefore calls on government to move SLASPA's needs to the top of its infrastructure priorities and so realize efficiency benefits and economic returns to businesses and consumers alike. This Chamber has consistently sought and welcomed deep and meaningful dialogue with government and its many agencies. Here, I am not speaking in the perfunctory tick-the-box engagement, nor do I mean superficial consultation to satisfy public relations optics or donor conditionality. I am talking about partnership. I am talking about mutual respect. I am talking about inclusion with time to discuss, understand, research, verify, and comment objectively on any new policy, tax, or legislation likely to affect our businesses and ultimately the wider society of which we are a vital part. We have a treasury of enlightened and experienced members. We have human and physical capital at stake. We bring diversity to the discussion table. We offer alternative perspectives. Put plainly, we complete the economic picture in ways which government, acting alone, cannot conceivably know or predict. Moreover, we are deeply invested in the future of St. Lucia and must therefore contribute to shaping that future in which government has a fiscal and fiduciary role. I offer two examples where government took very divergent approaches. Firstly, the Tax Administration and Procedures Act. In this case, the Inland Revenue Department, IRD, shared their goals, objectives, and principles guiding their approach. They invited our views and comments and came back to discuss a further draft, highlighting the changes they had made and explaining why they may not have accepted some of our suggestions. A further discussion was then held, bringing in other stakeholders, and a revised draft was shared again. This was highly commendable and made for a more enlightened and practical policy instrument. Of special mention, a similar approach has been taken so far by the Ministry of Commerce on the trade license bill. We trust that it will continue in this vein. In stark contrast, all substantive discussion regarding the labor minimum wage order took place post facto. In effect, the private sector was only informed of the details of this major policy instrument after it had been publicly announced. At that point, there was very little scope for discussion, meaningful discussion. As such, any substantive improvement regarding structure, implementation, or administration was already precluded. While members readily embraced the need for a minimum wage, the lack of opportunity for constructive input during the formative stages of this order has led to unforeseen impacts that could have been easily anticipated, addressed, and mitigated in the best interest of all. We can give many more examples where the Chamber is left scrambling to intervene before detrimental policies are inflicted upon us. Indeed, there is currently no participatory forum which addresses taxation and other fiscal issues as a matter of course. For this reason, I am proposing an annual National Development Forum or roundtable as a precursor to each and every national budget, so that the private sector and indeed other civil society actors need not feel excluded, restricted, undermined, sidelined, or selectively burdened with the cost of national development. All too often, the business community is a scapegoat for higher prices, revenue shortfalls, low wages, poor service, without any reference to the crippling environment within which we are expected to operate. Be assured that your chamber remains steadfast in its pursuit of the greater good for as many as possible. This is not merely an altruistic ideal, but a belief in collective sustainability, without which even the most profitable ecosystem will eventually implode. In this interdependent economy and in this interdependent world of global trade, climate change, supply chain dependency, crippling pandemics and natural disasters, our history and experience both teach us that it is in no one's long-term interest to singularly seek advancement. In this spirit, We will continue to deliver positive results to the wider St. that benefit all our member businesses as well as the wider St. Lucian community, because we believe what is good for business is good for country, and by inference, what is good for the country is good for business. The Secretariat, for its part, continues to align its efforts with the training priorities clearly identified by members. These include upskilling teams, labor code competence, business continuity planning, human resource development, finance for non-finance managers, creating sales champions, understanding financial statements, costing and pricing, and the signature Dale Carnegie program, Skills for Success. We will continue to adapt these offerings as determined by your most crucial business interests. Early next year, the Chamber will be engaging an independent service provider to conduct a Chamber perception survey to inform and guide the Chamber on better meeting the emerging and rapidly changing membership and business environment. As member engagement is one of our most vital pillars, this Chamber has brought you a roster of vibrant and often provocative guest speakers, providing enlightening perspectives on issues closest to our cause. We recall the Power Breakfast with the Honorable Justice Peter Jamadar and Dr. Janive Renmi, keynote presenters on the original jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Yes, there are many more topics that she has to cover, but at a future engagement. We remember also the executive luncheon with His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, who spoke on business opportunities in Guyana, the fastest growing economy in the world. Most recently, last week, we engaged with Mr. Francis Fontenelle, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and the Youth Economy, and Ms. Gemma Lafayette, Head of Research and Policy, regarding up-to-date economic data, forecasts, and projected economic performance. We have similarly maintained dialogues with diplomatic missions, seeking new markets, alternative supply options, and exciting global prospects for our membership. As intended, these interactions ensure that our members are in sync with the pulse of business and economic opportunity within the region. With all this, it has been an exciting year, and not without its persistent challenges. Certainly, there is still much work for the Secretariat to do, maintaining a focus on those issues most critical to you, our members. Despite resource challenges, our Chamber has made the deliberate choice to stand as an independent voice for our members, and by extension, the broader private sector. This role is central to the functioning of our democracy, providing a necessary counterpoint to the ubiquitous public sector. Our effectiveness in that regard requires your support, but the Chamber can never be a thing unto itself. Membership subscriptions, membership participation at events, and membership responsiveness on issues all help us to better understand and represent you. Our collective agenda will always require resources. Our collective positions will always be driven by you, our members. Your active participation at multiple levels therefore remains central to the continued success of this democratic institution, which has endured for 140 brave and noble years. Your concerns are our agenda. Your strength gives us voice and purpose. On behalf of my fellow directors, I confess a profound gratitude for the trust and responsibility reposed into our hands. I assure you that we are ably supported by a passionate, hardworking Secretariat, fully subscribed to the ethos of innovative services, strong leadership, strategic advocacy, and sustainable growth of members and communities. To the Secretariat team, thank you. I add my thanks for the long hours and insightful, very long hours sometimes, insightful guidance put in by directors. Such efforts often go unremarked and unrewarded, but they are deeply reflected in all that we have achieved. May God continue to bless and guide us as we continue to build upon the 140 years of effort and sacrifice made on behalf of the business community by our predecessors. We pledge to continue working and to continue advocating for sustainable business and community prosperity across St. Lucia. Thank you.